Welcome to the Urban Element Studio. My name is Brian. I've been quilting for over 35 years, and one of my earlier jobs was working in a local quilt shop. One of the greatest joys during the year was to get a new Checker distributor catalog and get to go through and see all of the new and innovative projects that were in the catalog. It was kind of like being a kid and getting to go through the toy catalog just before Christmas. So in that theme, I'm proud to be presenting a new and innovative project that will be featured in the Checker catalog and online. And that is a quilting design that is printed on a tearaway paper. So this could be used on either a domestic sewing machine or a long arm sewing machine. This gives you the ability to practice your free motion quilting with some lines to follow, either on the domestic or the long arm. It's a great way to learn either way. The paper in this particular case, we have both the front and back printed on this tearaway paper. You can see that we have one toe facing the left and one facing the right, so that when we sew these together and turn it inside out, you will have the design on both sides of the stocking. This is a tearaway paper, so it will be a single use. You will use each design one time and then tear it away. And as I said, it could be used on both domestic and long arm. We have a couple different designs available here, and I think I'm going to be using either a Moulin Rouge or the holiday garland. I haven't decided yet. What I have here is a quilt sandwich. This particular green fabric I used in a tree skirt that was also for the holidays, and so I had the fabric left over and it matches, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. What I have is the same green fabric on the front and back, and in the middle I have used a fusible batting. Because of the size of this project, it might not have been absolutely necessary to use fusible, but I do like the way that it responds with using the tearaway. Other options could have been to measure out your components and then either serge the edges together or just top stitch them. You could have used wash away basting thread, but any of those processes will work. So I have my quilt sandwich, front back fabric layered with batting, and it's big enough for me to do one side of my stocking. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and cut this apart and get this ready to go to the sewing machine. The only thing I need for this process is some 505 temporary spray adhesive that will adhere my pattern to the quilt sandwich. I'm not using any pins here because I don't want the pins to be hidden by the tearaway, and I don't want to sew over a pin. So I'm going to go ahead and take the next step, cut this apart and get the 505, and we can get over to the domestic sewing machine in this case and see how this process works. You can see that I have my quilt sandwich ready, and I have cut away one side of the stocking pattern. I have plenty of extra space around my stocking, and what I'm going to do is use the 505 temporary spray adhesive and just spray the back of the paper. Depending on what area of the country you live in and your humidity level, the 505 will last varying length of time before it's no longer really adhering to your surface. It is designed to evaporate away. How much time you have really is going to depend on where you live. If you spray this and don't finish the project and set the project aside from 3 months or 5 months, you're going to find that this is no longer adhered to the fabric. But right now, it's very well adhered to the fabric. So I can go ahead and take this over to my domestic sewing machine. You can see we have a start pattern here. And if you wanted to, you could start the practice by going around the outer component, the stocking size, and then we can move into the stocking itself. Something like this would also be fun to do with couching thread if you wanted to do that to make the pattern really stand out. But what I'm going to be using today is a variegated isocord thread. This is a red, white, and green variegated thread. It's a 40 weight. So I'm going to go ahead and thread up my domestic sewing machine and get this ready to start stitching out. Well, I have my system set up. I have my feed dogs dropped. That's going to allow me to move my quilt sandwich around without catching the feed dogs and give me a greater range of motion. I also have on a quilting foot, which will help improve my visibility so I can see where I'm going. And I have some quilting gloves. I will say here and now that this is not my go-to method for quilting because I have the digital machine. So I'm not a fantastic free motion quilter, but this will help you improve your skill. It is all a practice game. When you see people who do really beautiful free motion quilting, you know that they've been doing it for many, many years and they practice all the time, either quilting or drawing. So some of the other keys, in my particular case, I can speed up or slow down the speed of my machine, and by slowing it down I can keep my foot completely down on my foot control, and that will be one less thing that I have to think about while I am moving about. As I get a little bit better, I can increase the speed, but I will always have my foot pedal all the way down. So that's one thing I can put out of my head. And I'll probably have to pull my gloves off after I pull the thread up because I won't be able to cut the threads. So I'm going to go ahead and get to a start point. And I have my thread pulled up even though I took more than one stitch. And I'm going to hold my threads here. So now that I have the thread started, I can go ahead and snip these threads off. And hooray, I was able to do it without taking my gloves off. So you're going to see that I'm going to go pretty slow at the beginning. And here we are just really doing the outline of the stocking. That is the beginning, and it's really a good place to start. I can always stop anywhere and reposition my hands. At this point, the stitching is really not going to be showing anywhere. This will be the sewing line of the stocking. But you can see that it really does give us a place to start. By dropping the needle down, I was able to reposition my whole piece, my whole quilt sandwich. You will start to make big improvements fairly quickly after you get into the habit of what the process is. It's a little bit of eye-hand coordination. You can always stop and reposition as you need. And if you wanted to, you could even quilt the dotted line first before you even get started, just to get some practice of staying on the line. Now, if you've watched any of my videos in the past, you know that I talk about pantos as a spirit guide. And in that same regard, the design on this paper is a spirit guide also. It's going to guide us in the direction of a design. It is not a drill sergeant. If we go off of the line a little bit, it is not the end of the world. This paper is going to completely be torn off when we're finished, so there's going to be no evidence of what the original intent of the design was supposed to be. We are going to try and follow it, but if we're off a little bit, it's not going to be the end of the world. You can see if I speed up, I'm not getting as accurate, and the key really for me personally is to slow down. I have to stop sometimes and reposition my hands. If I were alone here in the studio, I would have some music playing in the background, but I have been beaten up enough over the years about playing music, so we won't have any music today. I was really off on that one. I like to have my hands a little bit closer for the circles. I obviously need to slow down for those. You don't want to go too slow though, because it will start looking like a octagon stop sign. You want a nice flow. I think also this is like just a mindset of relaxing a little bit, not getting too tense. If I try and stay at a nice pace, a nice clip like I am now, I do better. But I'm not going to lie, sometimes my impatient nature gets the best of me. I'm well over halfway finished. I think I'm down to my last 2 holly leaves. And that's it for my stocking. Let's go ahead and clip the threads. And probably from there it looks really good. I'll give you a close-up look on the table. There are a couple places where I was extremely off, but in many places I did very good. One of the things you might want to consider when you're doing yours, you have a front and a back of the stocking. Perhaps you want to do whatever would be your back first, so depend on which way you wanted them to hang. If you did the back side first, get a little practice under your belt, and then when you get around to the front, you're going to be better than you were the first time. There's nothing magic about this process. It is just another tool to use to learn how to perfect your skill level. We're all at different levels, and that's an amazing thing about quilting. People are always coming in and learning new things, and so we all have different levels of skill involved. I was never very good at the free motion quilting, but we never had these tools when I started. So this is a new tool to use to help perfect your skill, and we'll take you over to the table and show you where I was good and where I wasn't so good, and what it's like to peel the paper off. That's what everyone really wants to know. If we are critiquing my work, which I imagine we are, you can see in many places you can't see my stitches because it's directly on the line. Around the stocking, I'm not worried at all because that's my sewing line for the stocking, so any mistakes there are not going to be evident. I'm a little bit off here, and I was a little bit off here. It's those swirls that got me each time. But then it comes down to the process of peeling the paper. And you can see the 505, because we just sprayed that, is still sticking pretty good to the fabric. But I could use that piece to stick my other pieces to. The paper was specifically designed to be easy to peel away, but it's going to be a little bit harder where we have some tight stitching on top of each other. But still, it's just a matter of getting in and peeling the paper off. A lot of times I also will plan on getting my piece washed when I'm finished, which I like the look of that anyway on my quilting. But it's just a matter of really scratching the paper and it peels away. Some people will get a little pair of tweezers, but I've never found that I really needed them. Little pieces like that will simply wash away, even if you just wanted to get it wet. Now, it's not water soluble in that regard. It's not just going to melt away. But with the washing machine and it being paper, it just makes it a lot easier to come off. So that is pretty much the process. I'm not going to bore you with watching every step of this, but it really doesn't take that long, especially if you sit down in front of the TV and you're just peeling this off as you're watching the evening news. This would also be something that the kids could help with. The little kids love to get their little fingers in there and peel the paper off, and that way you don't have to do it at all. But I will show you what these stitch out looks like after it's finished and all of this process is done. Here is the back side of the quilting, so you can see how nicely the quilting comes out when you're finished and the paper is taken away. And here is another version of one of the other patterns that are available. So very easy process. It's a great learning tool. It would even be great for helping to learn some of the younger ones who are eager to learn about free motion quilting and pass down the knowledge that we have. So the tearaway paper is a great tool. It also comes in edge-to-edge designs as well as some specific designs like the stocking. So I've shown you how easy this process is to just use a little bit of 505 to adhere the tearaway paper to the top of your project, whether it's a stocking or some other type of quilting. I used the fusible batting in mine, but depending on the size of your project, you could choose whatever you want to use. We just don't recommend ever putting the paper over top of pens, whether they are straight pens or safety pens, because you don't want to run over a pen with your machine stitching. That's never good. Thanks for stopping by the studio today, and I hope to see you again next time.